truth is the most convincing story that maps onto reality, and that's why the central narrative is falling apart.
Right now in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks.
We must see the central narrative for the fiction that it is. We are Americans.
While elections are sometimes messy, this was a secure election.
The founders began the fight for human liberty and self-governance, and it's up to us to finish the job.
I'll tell you what, we are in a truth emergency right now.
This is the end game.
Immensely seductive. Quite sure he's right. Obsessionally neurotic. Pretty dangerous, in fact.
Do you mean you doubt your powers to convince him?
Worse than that. What I'm afraid of is his power to convince me.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories.
Sweetheart, be reasonable.
All right, so there we are. Welcome, everybody. It is Wednesday, September 11th, 2024, the 1330th day of dystopia. I'm your moderator, Chris Paul. Let's be reasonable. Welcome to the live stream. Obviously, we are going to spend some time talking about the debate, the big debate. The biggest political moment in the history of the world. It was bigger than 4 Super Bowls put together. I can't believe we all got to witness it. It was that big of a debate. What a time to be alive that we could witness a debate like that. Okay, so I guess that there is some portion of the people out there who thought that Kamala did really well. And there are some measures, some standards by which she did do fine. And unfortunately, those are the ones that a lot of people think are really, really important because the liberals they're friends with in their lives think that those measures are really, really important. And they measure the success of not only what Trump's doing, but of the awakening based on whether or not the people who still haven't woke up from the new thing, or whether they just kept saying the same thing they always say. As if there is some world where Trump would say the right things and present himself a certain way, and they would be like, you know what? I hated this guy right up until now. That's not what's going to happen. The Trump derangement has to go away first. And then you open up to what Donald Trump is saying, and then you begin to understand him. But this isn't just I'm not trying to do mop-up duty for Donald Trump. He slaughtered Kamala Harris last night. She didn't say anything. And, all people can end up relying on to make that point is that her presentation was good. She didn't present as a cackling lunatic. She didn't babble the way she often does. She didn't mumble the way Joe Biden does. But she didn't say anything. She successfully read through scripted and rehearsed lines and potentially even scripted exchanges with the moderators. I posted, you know what? Here I am. Not realizing when I'm going to need things like this. I made this picture last night of Donna Brazil. Here she is. Well, not quite. Hold for processing. Really thought I had it, Here she is. Donna Brazil. I fed this into Leonardo AI. Donna Brazil as a supervillain. And there she is. Donna Brazil last night was in the pre-debate coverage on ABC. Somehow, the woman who is most famous for giving Hillary Clinton the questions in the Democrat primary debate against Bernie Sanders. That woman was in ABC's pre-debate coverage. That's incredible all on its own. And then we see a debate that is clearly scripted. And I don't mean every little word was scripted. I don't mean that Donald Trump's parts were scripted. I mean that there was a way that the questions, are going to go. There was a way that the responses were going to be given. Kamala Harris had to hit certain points. She was going to say many times that Donald Trump and his administration were a disgrace. That is very important. To say things that Donald Trump did were disgraces. She had to say that his supporters desecrated the Capitol because she wants to call attention to the stories they made up about Trump supporters smearing their feces on the walls. These sorts of claims, if you go back through the history of false flags and these sorts of operations, go all the way on back to the Reichstag fire. And you will find instances of them accusing people of smearing feces on things. That's what they do to make people sound like they are primitives and savages. They don't have brains. They don't actually have claims that they're making. They don't have genuine grievances. They just go there to cause havoc and do the things that savages do, like smear their feces on the wall. That is what they told us Trump supporters did in the Capitol. And these are the sorts of cues that the liberal mind picks up on. And that is what they're doing. They have this ongoing media propaganda campaign to convince people of a reality that simply does not exist. A false reality across the board. And we see these hoaxes all the time. The Arlington Cemetery nonsense was just a rerun of the suckers and losers hoax from 2020. None of it's true. But it doesn't matter if it's true. It matters if people then can say that Donald Trump is not good to the military. It doesn't matter that he takes care of veterans. It doesn't matter that he doesn't start foreign wars. It doesn't matter that the military actually loves him. None of that matters. It only matters that they read in the Atlantic that he called soldiers suckers and losers. It doesn't matter that Joe Biden went to the what is it called? It's not called the peaceful transfer. Dignified transfer of the soldiers' bodies being returned from Afghanistan and checked his watch and looked bored the entire time. That doesn't matter. Joe and Kamala are still very pro-military. They're the ones who are supplying Ukraine. That's the sort of thing they would say, and believe it makes sense because they support the neocon warmongers of the world. And if you support the neocon warmongers, then you must be pro-military. Donald Trump is pro-military. He gets framed the opposite way. And that is a joint operation between the politicians of the Uniparty and the media that serves the politicians of the Uniparty. In fact, the media is more high-ranking than the politicians because the media can take down the politicians. The politicians can't do shit to take down the media. The media is fully owned by the global regime. The media works on their behalf. They have this set up around the world. They use it to overthrow countries. This is an historical fact of the world that goes back at least 80 years. This is 90 years, I should say. This is what they did with the media leading up to World War II. Exact same thing. So they create a false reality, and Kamala Harris's job last night was to support the truth of the claims within that false reality. That false reality must be portrayed as real in every venue. And so it's Kamala's job to portray that false reality as true. And as the child-brained uniparty left standard issue villager at home, they need to have that reality reinforced. And every time Kamala Harris does that, they feel good. Every time she says mean things to Donald Trump, they feel good. It's not about, Kamala comes out and talks about how it's going to be all lies and insults. And then what does she do the whole time? All lies and insults. Do the people who say they want the adults back in the room and who say that they want to end the divisiveness, who say they are sick of the lies and insults, do all of those people like all of that stuff when Kamala Harris does it to Donald Trump? Yes, they do. They absolutely lap it up. They love it. They want to see Kamala Harris be disrespectful to Trump. They want her to take it to him. No one ever takes it to Donald Trump. Donald Trump doesn't have enough bad things said about him. This is what they believe in their minds. Because Donald Trump hasn't gone away. The only way to know whether or not enough bad things have been said about someone within the context of the party of false decorum is that they have gone away. They have been exiled, or they have exiled themselves. They have stopped talking, or they simply grovel and they apologize, and then they beg forgiveness and ask if they can come back in. And we saw people doing that in the post-Me Too era. This is something very standard for their cancellations. We see Con Inc. Influencers still groveling before these people because that's who they ultimately want to be friends with. But the main narrative going in was that Kamala Harris was going to try to bait Donald Trump. That was the entire operation. She was going to master the art of baiting. She was going to become a master baiter and bait Donald Trump into getting really angry. So she was going to lie and say terrible things, not because she believed them, but to get a rise out of Donald Trump. And again, the adults are back in the room. This is supposed to be something that is considered mature and responsible. Again, everything is justified because Donald Trump is that bad. And so she is the mature adult. She is the one representing decency and good faith and goodwill. She is the most informed while she's doing all of these things. She wanted to bait Donald Trump. And then, of course, the Con Inc. Simpson influencers, all of these people who supported the legitimacy of Joe Biden. For all intents and purposes, these are Joe Biden supporters. They are now Kamala Harris supporters. They believe it is their job to nitpick the messaging of a literal master of the information war, a master of media manipulation. They want to change his messaging in the middle of an information war. These are the stupidest people on earth, or they are just simply working for the other side. And it turns out that it's actually both. So they got very upset that Donald Trump was succumbing to Kamala Harris's mastery of baiting. He took the bait. She mentioned rallies and rally sizes. Donald Trump responded that actually people don't really leave his rallies early, and his rallies are massive. He has 100,000 person rallies. Kamala Harris can't draw anyone without bussing them in and paying them. He said that on national television to all of Kamala Harris's supporters. And we are supposed to believe that that's a bad thing for Donald Trump. That is mindless insanity. Yet a lot of people on our side get swept into that because they are used to appealing to authority, and the authority figures on the uniparty right, and even they believe for MAGA, are all of these big popular influencers gathered around the intellectual kids table on Twitter. These are the smart people. It really is incredible to me that can be framed as Trump giving in to Kamala's strategy when he put it on the table before the nation and said, hey, you're going to now contend with this. You're going to contend with the fact that Kamala Harris's live support is not in any way authentic. She co-ops major pop acts concerts to get people there. She pays people to go. She recruits people to go. They bus people in to go to her rallies. Not that there are very many of them, and not that she's ever gathered all that many people. They give union employees the day off, a day of paid leave, because the union bosses are corrupt Democrats, corrupted by the system, corrupted by the regime. They need to keep their system in place because without it, all their power goes away. So they give all the employees of these companies a day off so they can go attend a Kamala Harris rally. That is an important thing for the nation to understand. And Donald Trump put it right down on the table and said, contend with this, look this over, peruse this a bit, check out the whole catalog, check out the shipping rates, see if you can find something you like. He did that in 100 different instances, and they're not actually going to be able to contend with any of those. And people are upset because he took the bait. What do they want him to do? Not respond? respond very calmly and coolly. You see, if Donald Trump says the things he says, but a little bit calmer, that's going to convince the Trump deranged people to vote for him in a fake election. And of course, then we just see people nitpicking what Donald Trump is doing. Now, listen, I don't have to argue that Donald Trump gave every answer perfectly, and I don't believe he gave every answer perfectly, but that's not the point. He gave everything he needed to give. He put it right out there on the table. Kamala Harris had no substance to anything she was saying. People have come to understand what sounds like a platitude, what sounds like political nonsense that they've heard 1,000 times before. Kamala Harris didn't say anything that she was actually going to do that would actually work or improve anyone's lives. She didn't prove she was serious. She just proved she could get all the way through answers she memorized. So I don't really get that, man. The baiting thing is one of those things that they set it up. They seed the narrative. Oh, Kamala's going to bait Trump, and then he's going to blow up. And when he blows up, whoa, that's a thing he can't do. Everybody's going to know that's big bad Donald Trump. Oh, he's going to be in real trouble. He's going to lose the debate if Kamala Harris is able to bait him, and then he answers in a way that we don't like. That's not what happens. The entire paradigm that they set up there is totally wrong. So you don't need to get upset when they tell you she's going to bait him, and then you see Trump take the bait. That's not even a thing. They just set that up and seeded that as though it was a bad thing. And then everybody's like, oh, he did it. That's a bad thing. No, it's just fine. It's just fine. Let me just have a look here in the chat. Okay. Hope everybody's doing well and having a nice day. Rants number 1 over. Let's get into way more rants. We're going to go through some of what was happening. And we're going to go through a bunch of clips from the debate. And I'm going to focus on all of the things that Donald Trump set out there on the table for people to contend with. All of the things that he told a massive American political audience all at the same time. You might remember back to my episode the day after the Joe Biden debate, the Donald Trump-Joe Biden debate. I think it was, what was that? June 27th? June 27th of 2024. The day after that debate, I did an episode, I believe it was the day after, called Catharsis. And in that, I talked about how the regime's one goal is to get everybody back on the same page. And the only time you can get everybody on the same page is when everybody's eyes are on the same thing at the same time. And you need a major event to do that, okay? You need something that's going to be on all the TV channels round the clock. Like 9/11 got everyone back on the same page. And of course, today is the anniversary of 9/11. If you were personally affected by that tragic event, obviously you have my sympathy. My college girlfriend, her brother actually lost 2 of his best friends in the towers. So I was not as directly affected. I knew those guys, but was not as directly affected. But someone I cared very much about and her family were very directly affected by that. And it was awful and tremendously sad. That said, we do not need to pretend that the central narrative or the official story about 9/11 are true in any respect other than the fact that those buildings did topple and people were in them. Okay. And that means that we don't have to agree with, sadly, the 9/11 families when they say that this was Islamist terrorists. Okay. Was there some element? I suppose maybe there could have been, but that's not required at all for that event to have happened in the way that it happened. And so there are far bigger causative factors in that event than Islamic terrorism. And to pin it on that at this point is silly. I don't say this in any way to offend those families. I have great sympathy for them. But we can still tell the truth about these events. We don't need to preserve the official story on their behalf, because then they unwittingly become pawns of the regime game. They become human shields for the regime's agenda, And sadly, we can't allow our sensitivities to prevent honesty about these issues. Okay. But that was the sort of event that would get everybody back on the same page. And there are very few of those now. They try to do these sorts of ops when you have, you could even say that they mix this in with NFL kickoff weekend, right? The Tyreek Hill thing we talked about yesterday. They want everybody to get back on the same page at the same time. They were pretty successful doing that with George Floyd. They were successful doing that with COVID, but it's really hard for them to sustain that long term in issues like that because there's just too much bullshit. You can't do something fake for that long. They had everybody back on the same page. Not everybody, but a lot of people back on the same page when it came to the very violent insurrection. They had a lot of people back on the same page when it came to Ukraine. They had a lot of people back on the same page when it came to Israel. But each one of those events, over time, you've seen people leave that page completely, and it makes them less likely to get back on the next page with them. So they are looking for that effect out of this event when they have an event like this. They need a big, profound impact. They need game changers, and they did not get a game changer. They didn't get anywhere close to a game changer. They wanted to cement the central narrative about Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, that this is a close election, that Kamala Harris is a very serious and competent candidate, and that Donald Trump not only cares only about himself and is a big, dumb, evil, egomaniac, corrupt, narcissist, liar, blah, 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 but that he doesn't know anything about what's going on. He doesn't care about the people of the United States, and he has no ability to fix it. Donald Trump made it clear that that's not true in any respect. And so we have this idea about what a perfect response and a perfect debate could look like. And we are not going to get that from Donald Trump. That's not who he is. That's not how he goes about things. He is a brawler in those situations. He doesn't prepare for debates. He doesn't need to prepare for debates. He goes in there and has a conversation, and he says the things he says, and then he's just going to go on with life. The idea that political debates and presidential debates are somehow the most important thing is crazy. These are television events to get everyone back on the same page and then shape the collective consciousness about how the debate went with things that aren't the debate, with the media coverage afterward, with the fact checks, with the visual presentation. And Kamala Harris was focused on the visual presentation, and people thought that was good because she wasn't cackling. That is a very low bar. It wasn't good. She had the weirdest facial expressions, and then that whole chin thing that she did, like just like this. Remember we talked, I think it was last week, maybe the week before, about Kamala Harris's niece and that iconic photo that was taken of Kamala Harris's niece with the braids coming out the side of her hair. And it was just taken from kind of below her at an up angle at Kamala Harris on the stage at the Democrat National Convention. And that's supposed to be some iconic photo. That was a staged photo opportunity. They took the niece, they framed her in the shot, and they said, just stand right there. You're all good. And then they sent it out as though it is just a candid shot that says so much about Kamala Harris's relationship to young girls of color and the next generation. Meaningless nonsense. That is what they were doing with the chin thing yesterday. I've talked about this many times. I used to work at a social media management company. We managed celebrities and we managed influencers and we managed brands. And we would come up with social media strategies for them. A lot of the time that would be, we would create content series with ideas that we thought were going to potentially catch fire in a pop understanding of mainstream culture. And that's the goal. And the Democrat Party, the Uniparty, puts a hell of a lot of money into that process. In fact, that is basically their only process. This entire campaign is being waged on social media with potentially viral content moments. That is what they are trying to do. They're trying to go viral for Kamala against Trump. They set up these viral moments as part of the scripting. Hey, Kamala, know that you're going to have to do this a few times. It doesn't matter where you get it in, but you're going to have to say this and this, right? Make sure to let them know that Donald Trump is a disgrace, that we're going to turn the page and we're not going back. And then Joe Biden, from his personal account, echoes that messaging this morning. And it gets echoed across the social media sphere. And that's how these messages go out. They are creating real moments for the sake of the content moments. All right. This happens in the social scene among influencers, and particularly in Los Angeles. I used to work in nightlife there. I talk to my friends now who still work in the nightlife industry, and going out in Hollywood now is essentially nothing more than people like reality show stars and online influencers going out to the clubs and filming themselves at the clubs so that they can look like they have a very vibrant social life where they are the stars of the show. They are VIPs in every room. And that is just part of their famous person lifestyle. They go out to film themselves, and then they leave and go somewhere else to film themselves. And then they leave and go somewhere else to film themselves. And then they leave and go home so that they can get online and continue curating their image in the contents of those posts. And they are living their real lives for the sake of the content they mean to create. Okay. And Kamala Harris's campaign is a campaign being run, to the extent there is any campaign, and there's, it's fake campaign. Whatever it is they're doing is for the sake of their content strategy. They are going out there and building content. That is it. That is all. They did it in the DNC. There is nothing else to it. All the other words in the process are for the sake of those little moments that will be snipped up and put together and then disseminated by their influencers so that people see that and that is their lasting impression of what the debate is. That is the purpose. They are confirming the existence and the truth of the false reality that the media has communicated. And then the media will take their turn after Kamala is finished and reinforce that false reality again and praise Kamala for reinforcing it as well as she did. So that is their goal. And now let's also keep this in mind before we go into these clips, okay? I said this maybe on Devolution, I think Devolution the other day. John stepped away for a second. Patrick and I had a couple of minutes, and I went through this and talked about how we often tend to forget in our analysis. And I'm using the royal we. I do it sometimes. I make it a priority not to do it. Okay. So if and when I do it, it is consciously by mistake. Okay. And I will become aware of it and be like, damn it. And then try to reassess what I have said. We have to keep in mind that Donald Trump did not lose in 2020. Joe Biden did not receive 81 million real lawful American votes. There is no proof anywhere that he did, and that is why they won't let anyone check. He was not lawfully certified. He was not lawfully inaugurated. All of this is a charade. To the most powerful world leaders, all of this is a charade. Donald Trump literally says she thinks that he's playing a joke on it. Okay? Now, you can take all these things as euphemisms. You can just say, oh, well, there's no proof that's true. All right. I mean, I don't know what more to do to convince people that what they have been seeing over these last 3.5 months is a shell, a replica, a simulation of a presidency that is nonetheless convincing to people who don't pay attention at all. And it is not any verification of the reality of what they're doing that a great many people in our country do not pay attention. Okay? It sucks that they don't pay attention. I am happy to admit that it sucks they don't pay attention and that it makes it hard to relate to them within the same reality, and that it is easy to defer to their reality because that is the one that is broadcast on television and that is somehow seen as the default baseline reality, but it's not. It is absurd to think that Joe Biden actually possesses the power of the presidency. He does not wield that power, nor does Kamala Harris. And the idea that the global regime wields that power through him is betrayed by the fact that they're not getting any of the things they want done. They're not preserving their hold on Guyana. They're not taking over Venezuela, this country that they've been trying to overthrow for a long time. They're not taking back Myanmar or Burkina Faso. They're not taking back any of it anywhere. The money situation's not getting better for them. They don't seem to have any control over the military. Their hold on the means over information is slipping away. Okay? So you have to keep that in mind when you're watching this. We are not on the verge of a real election where real votes are going to make the difference. We are in a narrative battle, and whether the election is real and legitimate or not makes no difference. If the election is real and legitimate, then the results reported will be a scoreboard of the narrative battle. And if the results are not legitimate, then all that matters is the narrative battle, because all that matters is the court of public opinion. So we can put that aside in our analysis. What we are watching is almost certainly a long-running sting that will eventually lead to RICO prosecutions, and maybe already has. The idea that nothing is happening is insane, because you do not take down a massive criminal enterprise by arresting everyone as soon as you can prove that they've committed a crime. That's just not how it works. Donald Trump is clearly communicating that this is pretty much the last chance. You know, maybe if people want to do the right thing in their lives, then they are welcome to do it. People should become whistleblowers if they are aware of public corruption. But again, that has to be kept in mind while we're watching this. I just talked about the global regime and its relative control at this point. It has virtually none. It doesn't mean that they aren't still in mid-negotiation. Donald Trump is in negotiation all the time with the global regime. He is answering the moderators. He's answering Kamala Harris. He is communicating to other people. And he knows that he's doing that. And you can watch him. I'm going to play an example later. Actually, I forgot to make this note, this Hannity example. Man, I feel like maybe we're going to go long. And it might take me a while to get to Q&A today. I almost canceled the live stream because I wanted to really get through all of these points, and I didn't know if maybe it would be better to do a subject that would be more conversational with the chat, with the audience, with the commenters over on the Substack. But here we are. So let's go through this and take some time on this. Donald Trump is communicating to the enemy all the time in public, so everyone sees it. And you got to keep that in mind. I mentioned this on Badlands last night. The two things that we are waiting for. We are not waiting for the TV to report results of a fake election on November 5th. If you are waiting for that, more power to you. Go with God. All good. Okay? That is not a big deal. After that is when the big deal starts. November 5th is when the next period begins. Okay? Or maybe it's the beginning of the end of this period. I could be fine with either interpretation. But it is not somehow the end of this process and we all ride off into the sunset. That's not what's going to happen on November 6th. They are still going to keep trying to distort the narrative however they need to prevent Donald Trump from being seen publicly as a legitimate power again. And if they cannot avoid that, they will go immediately to calling everybody Nazis. Okay? And saying that this is the new rise of Nazism in America following the rise of Nazism that they've been pitching in Europe. That is what's going to happen for certain. So the markers that we should be concerned with are how quickly the timeline gets moved up. The timeline getting moved up is a factor and a consequence of our success on the narrative end and the degree to which the public is awakening. Okay. I believe that we can speed that up. There are still markers on a schedule, but the effectiveness of hitting each one of those markers is going to be determined by how quickly the Great Awakening progresses. And that is entirely within the realm of the people's power to influence. And it must be influenced by the people. Donald Trump cannot do it. Okay. So the timeline is one of the things. And then the other thing is how much chaos they cause on the way out. All of these things should be kept in mind when viewing one of these debates. And what we don't need to focus on is how standard issue villagers on the uniparty left and uniparty right are going to perceive Donald Trump's attitude. 9 years of people pretending that this is the most important thing in the world. The reason that sticks around is because we succumb to it, because we think everybody else believes it, and therefore it has to be an important factor. If you ignore these things, they lose their power. If they lose their power, they go away. This is how they get attention. Standard issue villagers cannot analyze a presidential debate more deeply than who looked good on camera and what their feelings are about the issues discussed. And being that is the case, we do not need to cater to that thing, and we should not be catering to that thing. Our reality is not formed by their perception of their reality and their emotional responses to it. They say these things, and we think, okay, I understand what they're saying. On some level, the thing they're saying might be true. Therefore, I need to adopt their viewpoint that what they're saying is actually really important, and therefore, this thing has gone badly. Every single thing that the most reactive people in MAGA, even in the truth community, in Q, fans of devolution in Badlands, whatever it is, even people in those communities will still get triggered by things and react badly. And every time that happens, within a few days, sometimes within a few hours, as happened last night, that reaction is reversed. And they're like, oh yeah, everything's fine. So what has been accomplished in the meantime? People have gotten triggered. They have expressed themselves emotionally. They've gotten it all out. They've screamed it out into the void, but it's not quite the void because they are affecting other people. And they're in an information war and unable to control themselves because they want to establish their reputation as objective observers of what's happening. But they are not objective observers. Objective observers, to mean anything, would require an understanding of the context. And they don't understand the context. They understand their feelings about the context, but they don't understand the context. And they don't even take into account basic factors like our elections are fake. So they can't possibly understand the context. They will allow all of their viewpoints about everything, including pop culture, like what music they think is good, what restaurants they should eat at, everything. The whole range is decided by tastemaker influencers. And everyone knows in the influencer world and the public perception shaping world, I've known high-level public relations managers for 20 years, okay? These people operate at the top level of this. I don't know if this is true. I think it might be true. And someone out there can dispute me. That's fine. I think that Hollywood PR might require greater talent than corporate PR and political PR. I think that Hollywood personal PR and personal PR in general probably requires more talent than the other two. And I have known some of the major players in that industry in Hollywood. I have not a professional understanding of what they do, but a pretty good understanding of what they do and how they approach. And I can also observe their work and understand their work through that. You can look through any celebrity gossip magazine and understand that the hand of public relations is influencing every word and every picture on every page. Okay? It's not a mistake. That's how it works. if you're looking through a celebrity gossip mag, you are essentially just feeding yourself commercials about other people's lives. And then you will buy their product. And that is what they intend it to be. That's how they approach it. It doesn't matter how you consume it. That is how they approach it. And this news content should be seen the same way. You have to understand that they are building characters and building reputations in this. All of it is meant to shape public perception, because once public perception is shaped, other people will succumb by virtue of them wanting to be part of the group, part of the consensus, and to be taken seriously. And if you are still playing the game within the party of false decorum, if you are trying to level up on Twitter, if you're trying to become a famous influencer and make money on Twitter, then you care a whole lot about what the consensus is saying and whether or not you'll be approved by the group or rejected by the group. And we saw all sorts of that last night. If people are out there saying what Trump should have said, they are trying to win group approval and seem objective by trashing Trump. It's an honest mistake for many people, because this is just what they know. You're supposed to try to get more successful at what you're doing. That's what they're doing. This is how you become more successful, at least right now, but only right now, because after this period, authenticity is going to be prized so much higher than whether or not you are seen as objective by retarded liberals. And that is exactly who they're going for. Tim Pool, for instance, is trying to keep himself in a little niche that he's built. He will go against one side or the other at any time. We have been conditioned to believe that going against both sides equally makes one objective. That is not true. Taking your emotions and your own personal needs out of your analysis is what makes you objective. It is a mystery to me that anyone, this is just an inversion like any other inversion, okay? But criticizing the good side as much as you criticize the bad side is not objectivity. Refusing to say that something is bad, something is dishonest, something is evil, repeatedly, as long as it continues to be evil, is not objectivity, okay? That is you presenting a false story in order to seem objective. And that is what the mainstream media does. And sadly, way too many influencers have fallen victim and fallen prey to that. It is not the job of anyone to to witness an event and then talk about what should have happened instead. What kind of insanity is that? I mean, honestly, Trump should have said this. Trump should have said this. You know, there are times, again, where I would have loved to have been like, hey, Trump, when she's doing that abortion thing, the my body, my choice thing, hit her with, hey, didn't you guys put in vaccine mandates? Right? I would love that. But Trump didn't do that. And maybe he has a reason for not doing that. Maybe he doesn't want to provoke people who are sensitive about their vaccines. I have no problem provoking those people. I think that those people need to be provoked. If you got the vaccine, all good. You still have value as a person. If you haven't realized that was a terrible decision yet, then you're not awake, right? And if you're offended by people talking about that, then you're not awake. So that would be my approach, but it's not Trump's approach. And maybe Trump's right. Far be it for me to suggest that I know better than Trump. And it's not because I think Trump is infallible. It's not because I think he's perfect. It's not because I think he's the smartest man in the entire world, though he is very smart. It's because he knows a whole shitload of things that we don't know. He knows context that we can't even imagine right now. He's saying what he wants to say or what he needs to say, or maybe he doesn't care. He said during the debate that it was ridiculous. And we will definitely hit that at some point in this process as well. He doesn't have to be there. He is doing this because he thinks it's going to wake up the nation further, give people the debate they expect in this fake campaign. He had to give them the fake primaries. He had to give them all of this shit because people would refuse to wake up, and they have refused to wake up. They want to believe that everything is normal. Everything is not normal. The normal stuff stopped a long time ago, okay? If we're in continuity of government or we're in some sort of military government, and we almost definitely are, then things are not normal. The process is not normal, all right? And you have to be okay with that and leave that alone and start building for the future reality, not on the idea that you're going to go back to that. It's funny that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are pretending that they want to turn the page. They are literally the page, okay? They're all of that history in the book. That is the regime. They can't turn past that. It's them. When Trump talks about speculative, actually, you know what? We'll just get to this as we begin going through. So let's start with some clips. That'll be good. We don't need to just. I don't need to just rant the whole time. I mean, I can, but nobody wants to see that. It'd be so funny if everybody was like, "Yeah, we do want to see that." You're not seeing it, no matter what, whether you want to or not. Okay. Somebody said I'm a whistleblower of Hollywood. I don't think that I am. I don't honestly have much to whistleblow. I could point out things that people have done wrong and that I think are morally wrong. But I don't know any of those that would be worth maliciously trying to ruin someone's life over. I don't think. I mean, I tell you that they are getting paid taxpayer money or regime money that goes into the state, public funds. They're being paid public funds to propagandize to the American public on behalf of the most evil regime that has ever existed in the world. It's hard to think of something worse than that. Okay. And I know that the child predation stuff is worse than that if to the extent that is applicable. It is not applicable across the board, and people think it is. And, at some point, people are going to have to reckon with that, I hope. At the same time, I hope that the people who have actually engaged in that stuff are exposed and taken down. All right. But we don't even need that stuff to take people down. What is right there in front of us is more than enough as soon as people actually stop engaging with their shit. And I know I'm preaching to the choir a little bit here, but the industry can topple just based on market conditions before any of that stuff comes out. All right. The fact that they propagandize Americans, they are absolutely the equivalent of the Nazis in Nazi movies back then. And they pretend that they are heroic. That alone should be enough to take those people down. And the fact that a lot of people just ignore that stuff because they're waiting on exposure about pedophilia. And again, I understand the importance. I really do. I want every one of those people prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. I am totally open to the death penalty for all of that across the board, including people who didn't actually engage in any of the acts and were just part of the system that enabled it. Okay. I am as hardcore gets on all of that stuff. At the same time, we do not need to meet that waypoint in order to actually achieve accountability. And that accountability can come from the people as well. And no, I don't mean anything that has to do with direct action against an individual in any way or a group in any way. Nothing violent. You don't have to harass people. You don't have to dox people. You just have to expose what they actually did and adhere to it and repeat it when that stuff comes up. Hey, do you want to watch that movie with who's one of the worst communists? You want to go watch that new Stephen King movie? No, I don't want to watch that new Stephen King movie because Stephen King is a malicious communist who is involved in trying to overthrow this country. How about that? Right? No, I don't want to go see the films of this influencer because they took money, they took COVID money to propagandize people about ballot drop boxes. I know a bunch of people who did that, but everybody just keeps following them on Instagram. It really is amazing to me how these legacy social media apps control people's minds. And they think that it doesn't happen because everybody's aware of it. So they think it's not happening. If you are on Instagram, you are on an app that is a demoralization machine. It is built as a demoralization machine. It is built to convince you that the false reality is in fact true. It is built to make you a scientific materialist and nihilist. And that's exactly what it does. People just show off for one another and then envy one another for how much they get to show off. It's bad information. It feeds you bad information on purpose to change your beliefs. So does Facebook, so does Twitter, so does YouTube. So, this is what they do on purpose. And if you feel that your perceptions are ever skewed, it might be time to start wondering why. Spend a couple of weeks off of mainstream social media, and you will have a different perspective on the world. You know, we worry about the possibility of comms blackouts or power blackouts or whatever, and those things can be devastating. Don't get me wrong. I don't want that to happen. But if that did happen for a couple of weeks and people broke their social media addictions, we would live in a different world immediately. That's how powerful that is. And people just don't pay attention to it. They don't care. They continue to participate. Oh, Instagram, this is how I keep in touch with my family. Oh, really? You can't keep in touch with your family unless you're on Instagram, huh? Sounds like a personal problem. I still keep in touch with my family. I'm actually closer to my family now than I was before I got off Instagram. And that is true despite none of them agreeing with me about politics, sadly. They will eventually, and I will be there for them when that occurs. But yeah, man. Let's do some clips. Okay, so here we are. Let's start here. Project 2025. This is the sort of thing that you wouldn't even think was possible, but here we go.
Detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic.
So Kamala Harris says Donald Trump supports Project 2025. Trump answers that he does not support Project 2025 because, of course, he doesn't support Project 2025. Though there were former Trump officials who came up with and wrote Project 2025. Donald Trump had nothing to do with that, and he does not support it. He said last night that he didn't read it on purpose. So if that's not enough to convince you that Donald Trump doesn't support Project 2025, then nothing is. And then we are essentially at the point that the left would call normally a conspiracy theory, that the standard issue villagers, including the ones on the uniparty right, would call a conspiracy theory. They'll say Donald Trump supports it anyway, even though he says he doesn't. It's actually a secret plan. Donald Trump knows how unpopular Project 2025 is and how dangerous people perceive it to be, and therefore he denies his participation even though he really believes it. Donald Trump's agenda is out there. What Donald Trump believes is out there. He talks about it all the time. And he said that last night, actually. He said, everybody knows what I stand for. Everybody knows what I support. Donald Trump does not support Project 2025. He has not supported Project 2025. In fact, as I've mentioned a bunch of times now, Donald Trump wants to get rid of agencies and entire departments for which plans are made in Project 2025. So it is quite clear that the people coming up with those plans were not considering a second Trump term where those departments are done away with completely when they came up with that plan. The fact that there are plans for the Department of Education and the Department of and the Environmental Protection Agency should tell you immediately that the people who came up with Project 2025 did not intend that for Donald Trump. In fact, that is the Con Inc. Agenda that may mix in some of the more MAGA-oriented policies. But if you are intending to use the power of the federal government through the Department of Education or the Environmental Protection Agency, then you are not MAGA. You are not looking for an America First agenda. Those things are not part of an America First agenda. So if you still believe it beyond, and that is just a matter of pure logic. If agencies that Donald Trump says he's going to remove, entire departments that Donald Trump says he's going to remove, have plans written for them in Project 2025, then they certainly could not be from Donald Trump. So the only way to keep going with this is then to propose the conspiracy theory that Donald Trump is actually doing all of this in secret, and that is preposterous. People who have just woken up do not want to be lied to about things they have already discovered they were lied to about. Okay. And this is one of those examples. There will be better examples later, like the Very Fine People hoax, the Charlottesville nonsense. We'll go through some more of that. They don't want to see Kamala say things that they know aren't true, because then that breaks any trust they have for Kamala Harris. If you have figured out the Very Fine People hoax over the last 7 years now, and most people have, the moderators of the debate apparently haven't, but if you've figured that out in the last 7 years, you do not want to see Kamala Harris tell you that Donald Trump said there were very fine people on both sides. You can simply watch the video of that and know that's not what he said. That then becomes a direct, bold-faced lie right to the quote-unquote voter. There is no way out of that. She went out and told people who know Trump didn't say that Trump said that. Everyone saw that. Anyone who wasn't aware that the Very Fine People hoax is a hoax was probably sent video of that by someone in their circle last night. And so how does that make them feel? How does that make them look? That is an embarrassment, okay? They are gaslighting us. No doubt about it. And the problem is that people still fall for it. But they are absolutely gaslighting all those Democrat voters. And that is a disgrace. That is a person who is asking to be considered president, lying directly to the people who she needs to consider her president. That is a disgrace. Let's keep going with the same clip, because Donald Trump, it's so funny. Kamala Harris accuses Donald Trump of having, of wanting to implement, let me say it this way, of wanting to implement the Project 2025 agenda. And then not 3 minutes later, she says he does not have any plan. What are you supposed to say about something like that? She is refuting herself. Now, this is not the sort of thing that everybody's going to pick up while they're watching. Okay? This is how my mind works. I'm sure some of you noticed it as well. But normal people at home are not going to think of that. But this is something very easy that you can just present to them at any point. Anytime they say Project 2025, just say, wait a second, I thought you said Donald Trump doesn't have a plan. So you're saying Project 2025 is his plan? But Project 2025 isn't his plan. They are wrong about everything they say. When they assert things, just be like, yeah, that's wrong. Come on, Kami. You know that. And then they'll say, no, it's not. Okay, Kami, prove it. And they will send you links and sources. And then just be like, come on, Kami. Get rid of all of it. Laugh in their face. Don't try to prove them wrong. I tried to kind of model this on Twitter during my time there. And, you know, I've talked about it plenty of times and told people that this is the way to respond. Ask them, you don't possibly believe that, do you? Make fun of them, laugh at them, mock them. You can watch Kamala Harris attempt that strategy last night, and it failed because Donald Trump just stood steadfast, perfectly still, and let her say these things, these crazy things. Let her move her head in strange ways and gesticulate. Actually, let's take an example of this, okay? Because my pal Tweeter Trash over on Truth Social posted this morning, a great video that he put together or clipped or however you'd like to say it. I'm going to share his post here. Wait, where did this go? Okay, here we are. So what he did was take a clip from the debate and he sped up the video just in the interest of time, and he removed the sound. And he said this: no sound, visual only. Trump, stoic, unmoving, solid as a rock. Kamala, manic, triggered, reactionary. Trump exudes confidence and stability. Kamala is reduced to making faces and forcing her camera operator to constantly readjust in order to keep her in frame behind her mini podium. And she did have a little tiny podium. Jack Posobiec mentioned that they shot Kamala with an up angle to make her look kind of more majestic and taller and bigger. And Donald Trump had a little bit of a down angle to make him look hunched and withdrawn and maybe like he was an evil man plotting something, make him look a little older. And hey, man, these are the tricks of the media trade. It is important to remember that the propaganda media and the uniparty politicians are the same side. But let's have a look at this video. Watch Trump just perfectly still. Kamala Harris is using her hands as much as possible. She's making all sort of facial contortions to let you know that she's experiencing emotions or frustration. And Donald Trump is now answering a question, and he is, again, perfectly still. Same facial expression, more or less throughout. Just talking, not moving, not using his hands. Kamala Harris shaking her head, batting her eyes. What is he saying? What is he saying? Look at her blinking. Oh, I've got him now. Oh, I've got him now. Blinking, blinking, blinking. She is trying to make it look like he's saying stupid and crazy things. She is trying to communicate to the television audience. What is he saying? What can this man possibly be saying? And now she's very excited, going into all of it. And again, it's not a problem necessarily to use your hands when you talk. I do it sometimes. I'm far more animated than Donald Trump is here in general. So that's not necessarily a problem. It's just important to look at the two of them. When you're thinking about visual presentation at home, Kamala Harris is acting authoritative and acting confident and acting like she has full command of all of these issues and everything she's saying. But the difference in physicality here is stark. All right. So we'll leave that aside. I think that was very interesting. And thank you, Tweeter Trash, for bringing that to my attention. Let's go back to here. And we're going to let's just pick it up right where we actually, you know what? Let's pick it up right here.
Handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounced back, and it bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy. And the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's just a soundbite. I gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Okay. So did Kamala Harris win that exchange? Did Kamala Harris do anything even competent in that exchange? She told standard issue villagers in the Uniparty to trust the experts when it comes to Donald Trump's plan that she said he didn't have. She said he had Project 2025. Then she said he had no plan. Then she said his plan was going to increase taxes on people because of tariffs, which we'll get to in just a second. And then she said he had no plan again. And then he said that her plan was copied off Joe Biden's website, and it was. She put up her agenda on her website 3 nights ago now, and it was copy and pasted from Joe Biden's website. And there's nothing to it. He said it's run, spot, run. That was one of the best moments of the debate. But people didn't care because Kamala made faces and looked confident and spoke in complete sentences. I've talked many times before about the college educated ear and how people who have gone to college expect people to communicate in certain ways. That is the signal to know that person should be taken seriously. That person is very well spoken. They are composed in their delivery and their thoughts. It suggests that they have something more going on in their brain because they are so coherent in their speech patterns and so consistent in them. They sound very polished. Kamala Harris, first of all, has 6 different voices. Where was her strong black lady voice last night? Not there. Now, if it was me, if I was coaching Trump, I would have been like, hey, where are the rest of you? But Trump doesn't do that, and that's fine. Run, spot, run. That is embarrassing, and she doesn't have any way to counter that, okay? Her supporters don't have any way to counter that. Nobody focuses on that point, right? Run, spot, run. Give that to them every time they talk about what Kamala Harris is going to do. Run, spot, run. Hashtag run, spot, run. This is how the ideation for these social media campaigns happens. This is the sort of PR they do in their campaign. These are the moments they plan. Okay. If people on the uniparty right were actually savvy on social media, and they're not, they just ape what the leftists do and try to say leftists are wrong. They're basically constantly playing in to the game of uniparty leftists. You can tell that they are uniparty right. They do not try to form ideas. They don't try to push new ideas. They don't try to actually win the information war on any level whatsoever. Talk about Kamala Harris's plans. Talk about Project 2025. Respond with run, spot, run. Nothing else. Game over. That's it. Okay? And people don't understand how simple that is. You don't need to go and prove links and sources. This is like you sound vaccinated. All right? It already has enough meaning contained within the phrase that you don't need something else. And if you go to other levels after that, you are actually hurting yourself. You have already done the most perfect, succinct piece of communication you could possibly imagine. Kamala's plan comes up. You say, run, spot, run. They say, what are you talking about? Say, figure it out for yourself. Well, you didn't even give me an answer. Yes, I did. Well, that's not a sufficient answer. Yes, it is. It's really, really simple. But people make it really, really hard because they think having the convoluted, complicated thing is actually smarter. It's not smarter. It's a waste of time. The point is to win as fast as possible and move on to the next battle so you can win that as fast as possible too. And then you go through 1,000 battles at pace and your war is different. Again, the point is winning the information war. The point is not figuring out how to convince people through links and sources that they need to change who they're going to fake vote for. I don't care who anybody votes for. And I don't want to change anybody's opinion about what they want to vote for. We need to stop making that the discussion. Because once that becomes the standard of success, well, then we have to compromise a whole lot of things to convince these commies to vote for us. It's crazy. Donald Trump doesn't do it, but everybody on social media has to do it. Con Inc., our influencer leaders, they all have to tell us, oh, this is actually how it works. No, it's not how it works. We need to convince them to vote for us by using debate. People on Twitter do not know what debate is. They just exchange things they believe to be facts and then try to make points about how important their facts are. Unbelievable. We need to level up on this shit, man. I don't like to belabor these points because I don't want to make this about myself and my friends versus these other people who people believe to be on our side. They're not on our side, okay? We are doing, to the extent that they would be on our side and that they are leading things, they are doing an absolutely terrible job of it, all right? They are not waking up the normies. Real life conditions are waking up the normies. Let's do more clips. We're going to talk now about the tariffs because Kamala Harris presented this issue as though Donald Trump increasing tariffs on products from foreign countries is a hidden sales tax, a national sales tax on consumers. It is absolutely nothing of the sort. It is foreign countries paying to sell their goods in America. That money would go to fund the federal government. And those costs would then be passed on to consumers. But consumers do not have to buy foreign goods. Putting tariffs on foreign cars is not going to make domestic cars go up in price unless there are market manipulations.
All of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country, because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President.
Again, somebody's going to have to explain to me how that's a bad answer. Okay? He didn't speak through the whole thing perfectly. Every now and then there are answers where he kind of jumps to another thought. And in this format, he doesn't always have the time to make it back around. You can see him do that in rally speeches. He always makes it back around. You know, maybe some of that is the teleprompter. But again, that is a very clear, very simple answer. Everyone knows that's true. Okay? So the entire debate was like this. And we're going to go through more answers, obviously. But man, like I have to assume I cannot assume anything other than that people's opinions and beliefs are being shaped by the public conversation on social media because they want to conform to the group. They want to be part of that consensus. Or an idealized version of what they wanted to see Trump do in order to convince people that they know that Trump isn't who they've been saying for all these years. And again, man, if people are still at that point in 2024, I mean, if they're your family members, if they're your close friends, be kind to them, you know, try to help see them through this. But chances are they've probably been terrible to you over the course of the last 4 years. And they might not get through this. And I don't mean that something terrible is going to happen. I mean, mentally and emotionally, like this stuff is not going to get better. All right. They're not going to figure it out. And at the time where there is a massive shift, they are going to experience a lot of anguish over this because they have not chosen to consider whether they might be wrong about something they don't happen to know anything about. And that is, man, that's a tough one. Okay. So let me continue here. Cue up the next clip. Oh, all right. Here we go. I actually have this even more prepared. Hold for processing. Here we go.
In terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, ! When we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
Okay. Anyone want to tell me what the problem was with that answer? Anyone want to edit Trump ex post facto and tell everybody what he should have said instead. I mean, he comes, well, wait, first, let's talk about what Kamala Harris said. She said China wasn't being forthright about the origins of COVID. I didn't know the origins of COVID were up for debate if you're coming from Kamala's perspective. Are her supporters going to jump on board with the idea that China may not have been forthright in the origins of COVID? I can't imagine anybody's going to press that today, though they should. Donald Trump calls her father a Marxist professor. Donald Trump is correct that Donald Harris is a Marxist professor. Kamala Harris, likewise, is a Marxist. She put her hand up on her chin like this. What is she, the thinker? Kamala Harris, the thinker. Someone should drop that as a meme. I'm going to have to think about that meme more. Maybe I'll have to make that. Kamala Harris, the thinker. My God. Donald Trump in front of the nation, while everyone is getting back on the same page, Donald Trump gets everybody on the page of Kamala Harris is a Marxist. The person running for president is a Marxist. Not afraid to say it. Everybody else gets backed off it. Everyone has always gotten backed off it. Why? Because, well, the uniparty right is full of neocons, and neocons are derivative of Leon Trotsky. So the Bolshevik party versus the softer brand of communism party, it's the same thing. And there's a reason it's the same thing, because all of them are descendants, ideological or bloodline descendants of that same thing. Kamala Harris is one of those. Pete Buttigieg, by the way, is one of those. His father is just an avowed communist, a famous Marxist professor who taught in Notre Dame, the place where Pete Buttigieg ended up being mayor. Isn't that quaint? Calling Kamala Harris a Marxist in the midst of an also otherwise good response is an absolute body slam. And we're worried that Donald Trump took the bait? Really? That was people's analysis after the debate. They started with that analysis with the rally comments, insignificant, and just kept going with that. Like that was the only thing to take away. Oh, yeah, I think Donald Trump, he really took the bait, really took the bait. It's not going to convince the normies to vote for him, to cast their fake votes for him. That makes no sense. And, I get that some of my friends were saying that. I love and respect my friends. I think they are dead wrong about this one. And I think once they give it some thought, they will realize they're dead wrong about it. And, if we were going to press the issue, I could probably get them to admit that that's not actually the case. Or maybe they'd stick with it. I don't know. I don't care. But the point is, they can have that belief. I think it's dumb. And they probably think things I think are dumb. That's fine. I know that some of my friends thought I was nuts when I started talking about elections in the way I was talking about them a year ago, or what was it, 9 months ago? I don't know when it was. One of those GARTs. I think it was the GART in the fall, but it might have been the GART in January. But I talk about elections that way because that's how they are. And if people think that's crazy, that's all good. Let's keep going. Here is another great moment of Donald Trump. Tell me what Kamala Harris did that conquered this.
Thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy with a fake Russia investigation
we do have a lot
that went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris.
All right. Where did Trump mess up on that one? Anyone? Bueller? No. Trump did not mess up on that one. Trump said right there that they are weaponizing government against him, and said that attempts on Donald Trump's life, because I imagine that there have been many, are because of the political environment that has been created by people like Kamala Harris and, of course, Joe Biden. They have, done the fake indictments and blah, blah, blah. We are within the realm of the story when we're talking about one of these public debates. Donald Trump is not going to come out and be like, hey, guys, all this is fake. So, again, people think I'm crazy to say that. I remember definitely back at that GART in the fall of last year, talking about how the indictments were fake and people thought I was crazy. You can't just call it fake. Yes, I can. And it turns out that way after I do that, people are like, oh, yeah, that's fake. Again, it's not about me. It's about saying what you actually see. Okay? What you actually see. Observe what you observe. See what you see. Let me actually see if I can find this. I love this clip of Bannon. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, yes. Yes. Good. I found it. That makes me really happy. I thought maybe I had lost this to the internet forever. I might just save this as part of the clip library here. Who knows when I'll be needing to use it again. You have to see what you see, and you have to talk about what you see. This was from a couple of years ago on War Room. And you know how much I love Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon is out of the picture right now. He is, the story goes that he is in jail and he will be getting out of jail on November 1st. And hey, that's my birthday. Or maybe it's October 31st he'll be getting out. So he'll come out and be a very scary Halloween monster for all of the communists. Man, this clip has taken a long time to process. But I think it's good and I think it's worth it. But yeah, what I was saying, though, is that the point really is not about me. Anybody is able to see what they see and talk about what they actually see and not try to amend what they actually see to what might please or impress other people. That is party of false decorum. That is behavior that acknowledges the party of false decorum. Let's look at this clip.
Here's how they're mocking him. My ever-crack staff here says, outside of 10 Downing, if you pull the camera back, because it's got that beautiful door, if you pull the camera back, it's got 1,000 reports. The whole world's there, right? Every BBC, NHK, all the networks, CNN, they're all following the door, but they got a picture. Somebody is playing the, was it not the Mighty Python? Benny Hill, my dad's favorite, playing the Benny Hill song. You know why? That's spoofing them, and it's a joke, and they're saying it's a joke of what's happening. The country's in an economic collapse, right? Their economy's worse shape than ours is. And they're talking about, having a conference in a couple of weeks. It shows you the disconnect from the political class to reality.
That's it.
This is what we keep saying, it's that French, it was a French poet who volunteered and was an officer at Verdun and was killed right away. I forget his name now. Killed immediately, died at Verdun. And he had a saying. He said, the important thing is not to come back and to report of what you see. The most important thing in your life is to see what you see. That's what we try to do on the show so that you can see it.
And that's it. All right? That's what you got to do. What everybody else says is meaningless. Those people who are in the party of false decorum, people who are trying to conform to consensus, they are forming their beliefs on the basis of what other people are saying. They are actively allowing other people to shape what they believe. And I'm not saying you shouldn't take anybody else's viewpoints into account. I'm saying that it is your responsibility to have your own beliefs. You have to form those on your own. And when you do that, ignoring those other beliefs, you're probably going to come out with much better conclusions, because people online are allowing their beliefs to be formed for the sake of a popularity contest by complete and total strangers. Do you know how insane that is? That is an inversion that has been trained into us over a very long time. That is absolutely bonkers to allow your person and your belief system to be formed by countless strangers you will never meet. You don't even know if they're real people. And yet, it's all just too confusing, isn't it? Another moment that they will have no response to, which again, all the focus today is going to be on the moments that the mainstream media and that uniparty left and uniparty right have chosen to focus on. And then anyone from our side will spend their time reacting to what they choose to talk about. They'll say, oh, Kamala wasn't that good in that moment. Load these clips up. Put these in their face. Be like, respond to this, commie. What about this, commie? Always playing on other people's terms. We don't have to do that. And I made a comment last night in our broadcast, and a couple of people got a little, I don't know, put off in the chat. I said that it is common for MAGA, maybe Republicans in general, certainly establishment Republicans, and for even many Christians to avoid confrontation. They want to live and let live. They don't want to create tension over political issues because they think that it's not what the focus should be. And to some extent, they're absolutely right. But it's also okay to embrace some of this confrontation, especially in response to someone creating it for you. If the confrontation comes at you, you can't just avoid it. You confront back. You don't play on their terms and try to defend yourself. Just knock them over. These people don't know anything. None of these beliefs are real inside them. Okay. They're not passionate about these things. They will be passionate in their displays of emotion because they believe their emotion can shut you down, but they don't have the content of belief. You can wreck these people. Just steamroll them. Throw this stuff in their faces. Run, Spot, run. Check this one out.
When this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it because
your time is
I think we're going to do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Joe Biden actually hates Kamala Harris. Her facial expressions there, again, horrible. She's horrified. She's pretending Donald Trump is just making all this up. This crazy man is lying. That is what her face is meant to communicate. And you can know, by the way, why they wanted mics on, because they wanted Kamala Harris to interject with scripted and rehearsed lines to call Trump out on the spot so that that video clip would then go out on television. Kamala Harris took it to Donald Trump as he lied about her. The mics are off so that those moments can't happen. And that is a very good thing. Okay, let's keep going. They got into a conversation about abortion, and specifically late-term abortion. And we are all told by the media that all of this is nothing more than a conspiracy theory. What they are actually trying to do is simply defend the rights of women on the my body, my choice basis. That, of course, is irrelevant when it comes to vaccine mandates. But let's take a look.
The reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
Good, solid, strong answer. Again, everybody's back on the same page. Everybody's watching this. Everybody's going to see it. Donald Trump says that he supports the abortion exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother, just like Ronald Reagan did. And he sent it back to the states. That's where it should be. What is wrong with that answer? If you are a normie who needs to change his mind, let's say we're caring about these people for a second. We do in a narrative sense. We don't in a voting sense. Okay. We don't cater to them no matter what, but we can try to communicate well to them. They're saying that Donald Trump is trying to pass or will sign a national abortion ban. All right. And then they want to badger him on whether or not he will sign it if it comes to his desk. They want to make him disavow it. He can't disavow it because Donald Trump, as president, if something like that was brought to his desk, his approach is to do the business of the people. If somehow the people all wanted that, then maybe he would sign it. I don't know whether or not he would. But I think that if he would, that would be the argument. That's never going to happen, ever, because the people are never going to want that. And the more people learn about this issue, the less they want that. So what does it mean when the media and Kamala Harris are saying that Donald Trump wants a national abortion ban, and then Donald Trump says, no, I don't. It's sent back to the states, and there's the 3 exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother, just like Reagan. At that point, Kamala Harris and the Democrat Party and the media are advertising that Donald Trump is very strongly pro-life. They even said, you brag about how you're the strongest pro-life candidate ever. And then they hear, so the other side is arguing that Donald Trump is very pro-life. And then Donald Trump takes a totally, in a non-religious mindset, that is as reasonable as a perspective as you can have. Right? If you don't believe that life begins at the moment of conception, then Donald Trump's perspective is totally reasonable across the board for the American public and probably where they would come down on that issue. All right? I am not making a moral judgment about that position. But he has now presented himself as not what they're saying, while they're saying he's also not, he doesn't like abortion. And then he can easily say he doesn't like it too much either. So doesn't not like it and doesn't like it too much either. Sorry. So he is actually being put into a middle position by Kamala Harris. She's helping to put him there. So great answer across the board there. Then it comes to the fact of whether or not there actually is abortion up to the moment of birth and potentially, quote unquote, abortion after. Now that is called perinatal abortion. And in California, in 2022, I believe, there was California legislation to decriminalize perinatal abortion. It was California's AB 2223. You can look it up. And they intended to be able to make that decision if the baby either survived the abortion or was unwanted and born. Now, why do they have things like that? Well, it's because there's an abortion industry that needs that quote unquote fetal tissue. It is gruesome. It is disgusting. It's something we would rather not talk about, but that is real. Okay. And that's why those laws are in place. And why are they in place in these certain places? Because they're shipping in tons of illegal alien slaves. And on the journey to the border, an incredible number of women are raped. Some studies say it's 50%, some say it's 75%. You have to imagine a bunch of those rapes result in pregnancy. You might even imagine, considering how systematized this is, that some of those pregnancies happen on purpose so that they can be aborted once they get into the United States to these states, because there's probably some payoff or special consideration given to those women at that point. And it is a horrific moral crime. It is an evil. It is a stain on our society that is real, but it nonetheless is real. And it is supported by the Democrat Party. It is also supported by the Republican establishment, who hope to keep this an issue forever rather than allowing the country to simply learn what the issue is and decide it on those terms. Instead, we're arguing about my body, my choice, which is obviously insane based on what we saw happen, again, for instance, with the vaccine mandates. This is Perplexity AI. Did Tim Walz support any abortion restrictions? There is no evidence that Tim Walz supported any abortion restrictions as governor of Minnesota. In fact, information indicates that Walz has been a strong supporter of abortion rights in quotes. This is still, even the language of these AIs is biased, although it's worth considering whether that bias is a product of the people doing the inputting, and I'm talking about normal people, not people at Perplexity. If people are still going to talk in these terms, and that is going to be the dominant part of the conversation, the AI is going to bias in that direction, because of course it will. It's not like an objective knower of facts, okay? It is a reproducer of consensus opinions and some sort of underlying logic, which it often doesn't express. So Tim Walz in January 2023 enshrined abortion rights into Minnesota state law. Under his governorship, Minnesota repealed several abortion restrictions, including a 24-hour waiting period for people seeking abortions. Walz signed a bill that shields patients traveling to Minnesota for abortion care, as well as medical providers from legal attacks or criminal penalties from other states with more restrictive laws. So he has created an abortion sanctuary state and invited people from states where abortion is illegal to come have them in Minnesota. That is how much Minnesota wants their abortion business. Abortion is currently legal at any point in pregnancy in Minnesota. Walz has been described as an abortion absolutist by pro-life groups. He accompanied Kamala Harris on a visit to a Planned Parenthood facility in Minnesota, which is seen as a show of support for abortion access. And of course, Planned Parenthood is a legitimate eugenics organization and always has been. It was conceived as a eugenics organization, and they were trying to depopulate blacks from the world. I mean, getting frustrated about this stuff is pointless because this is also old and obvious, and people should be learning it now if they don't, and it's all good that some people don't know. I'm not trying to insult them, but come on. This is what it is. This is also what the agenda dictates based on what the industry needs and based on what the science needs, okay? The science uses fetal tissue. So they need abortions to do the science and the agenda, the transhumanism. All of that requires abortion. It is part of their agenda explicitly. There's no way they can complete their agenda without this level of abortion. So, of course, they support all these things. Their denials about supporting these things are nonsense. Kamala attempted the same thing with the Second Amendment. Tim and I are gun owners. Of course, we're not trying to take your guns. Yes, you are. The agenda absolutely calls for it. Everything you've ever done and ever said suggests that you are on that slippery slope toward taking all the guns away, because that is the final agenda. Nothing could be more obvious. They don't even have to come out and say they support that. And by the way, just to be clear, that is not parallel to what I said about Donald Trump earlier. This agenda is explicitly adhered to. It is published online. There is no conspiracy theorizing. They have supported every bit of this. And there are people who are open about it. They do it in stepwise process. This is how this plan has always gone. Let's go to this article from Breitbart just quickly. This is, again, on California's Bill 2223. California legislature passes controversial bill decriminalizing self-induced abortion. They claim now that this never happened because they adjusted some of the language. It does not change the agenda. California leads in the agenda. Another thing that they say, they can't just get out of this and say, we don't support it that far. Well, you don't support it publicly that far today, except you do say California is the leader, and California has supported it publicly and then scaled back. AB 2223 provides that a person shall not be subject to or criminal liability or penalty due to self-induced abortion. It would also protect those who aid or assist a woman or pregnant person who is exercising their reproductive rights, prevents county coroners from holding inquests for death, quote, related to or following known or suspected self-induced or criminal abortion, and allow plaintiffs to sue an offending state actor for violating reproductive rights and to recover attorney's fees in the process as well. The language of the bill uses the term perinatal, a term meaning the weeks both before and after birth, leading critics to claim that it would authorize infanticide. However, opponents of the bill argue that the accusation is false. The term's full context in the bill is perinatal death due to causes that occurred in utero, meaning that while a death from abortion might occur after physical birth, the death would have to be caused by self-induced actions prior to birth itself to be eligible for protection under the statute. Very convoluted and complicated. It also uses the term pregnant person. And then we can go to Ralph Northam. Donald Trump said this a little ineloquently last night because he was referring to the former governor of Virginia, not West Virginia. He corrected himself on this later. I love how YouTube pretends that they don't know what clip this is. Here is.
So in this particular example,
Governor Ralph Northam. You can't actually search Northam abortion on YouTube and get it to suggest results. It does not suggest this one. And that is an indication that this clip is, they are trying to limit the ability for people to view this clip. That is exactly the purpose of that operation. Let's do this clip. Here we go.
So in this particular example, if a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother. So I think this was really blown out of proportion.
He essentially said that the baby would be born and then they would figure out what to do with it. If in the case of a botched abortion. I'm just checking to see if I can find, sometimes in Telegram, sometimes even in news articles that are related to the subject, you can go to that article and it'll include past comments or tweets, and then you have the video. But yeah, Ralph Northam essentially said that they would keep the infant comfortable and then decide what to do with it. Maybe that was the original clip. But he also said that the comments were blown out of proportion. I don't believe it's possible to blow comments like that out of proportion. It's easy to see what he meant there. Okay, so that just happens to be one of those things that is factually true and unavoidable. And it doesn't matter how many times Kamala Harris says that there's nowhere in the country that can happen. There are places that protect abortion right up to the moment of birth. And the idea is that they have restrictions. You have to see 2 doctors, or you have to have a medical condition. 2 Planned Parenthoods count as 2 doctors. A medical condition depression counts as a medical condition. That is all you need to say. I think this baby is going to cause me depression, or I already have depression as a result of this pregnancy. Therefore, I have a medical condition. Therefore, I need an abortion. I know someone in Los Angeles who did that at like 6 months and used that as the reason, because the boyfriend that she was pregnant by left her. She was actually the leader of one of those women's groups in Los Angeles, those online women's groups. It was called Girls Night Out. They actually got exposed for it online. Good Morning America had done a piece on them because it was like 10,000 young Hollywood women, probably between the ages of, 18 and 35, who exchanged advice with one another about what the best way, like how you should approach a sugar daddy to have him buy you the most stuff before you sleep with him. They were exchanging tips on how to be good prostitutes in Los Angeles. This is not a joke. And they were very, very pro-feminist, the most woke thing you've ever seen. They would be constantly attacking one another, constantly claiming that they were triggered by certain language. And as soon as they called that, then whoever was triggering them was the bad guy and could be banned from the conversation. This is how they actually acted. And that's where we are now. But that stuff absolutely does happen. So these restrictions, the idea that they don't have abortion regularly right up to the moment of birth, that is kept active because of the abortion industry. They paint it as though these are individuals. No woman would ever want to do this. This is a very sad occurrence if and when it happens. It happens very little. No, it's part of the industry. Let's continue to the debate.
1,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never.
Look, I'm just pausing for a second. Look at the angle from which Trump is being filmed. You see how it's above him, looking down slightly on him, and Kamala's is not like that?
Happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you.
Again, if there was a part of that answer that was bad, I'm not sure which part that is. He actually even accused them of election interference there at the end, and I hope you all caught that. He laid it out very clearly. They've weaponized the government. They're indicting him for all of these things. Does Kamala Harris look good when she calls him a felon? She tried to insinuate that he was a rapist last night. She said that he was found liable for sexual assault in a case they rigged. They had to change the law in New York State to even bring that case. The so-called victim has no idea what happened or when. She saw the plot line on an episode of Law and Order. And this is what they went after Donald Trump with. Now, I mean, it's all fake, but she's using it and people believe that that's true. And people think that she slammed him and made him look bad. Is that what you just saw? It's not what I just saw. It occurs to me maybe that people are nervous during these debates. They watch them as though they're a sporting event and they're like rooting every moment. Oh my God, she just scored a touchdown against him. How is he ever going to come back? Nope. Look at it. It's just Trump answering the question. It's fine. Everything's fine. I mean, did he have some bad moments? You can say that he did, but the idea that that these moments are overshadowed by whatever bad moments you want to ascribe to him, I don't get it. It is, again, a disgrace that the illegitimate totalitarian regime in this country is going after its political opponents. It is part and parcel with censoring the American people. This is the same regime that we were taught represents all the greatest atrocities of the 20th century. These are the same people doing the same things. Now they are doing it to and at Donald Trump and MAGA, at least in a narrative sense. Okay? And again, that's Kamala face planting and Donald Trump crushing her. I don't know how to see that any other way. You would have to actually believe that all of those indictments are totally legitimate. And I understand that there are people out there who believe that. And I understand that that may be, I don't know, 20, 30% of the country. I can't imagine it's a whole lot more than that. Our polls aren't real. We're not a 50-50 country. Donald Trump didn't actually lose to Joe Biden by 7 million votes. All of that perception is wrong. People don't actually think that the Trump indictments are a good thing for the country. And so he just lays it out and throws it right in her face. And she, again, is just wondering what's going on. And I don't know, man. I don't know. I guess there are just different ways to watch this and different perspectives. I do not know how people think this went well for Kamala Harris. I just don't get it. Let's keep going. Man, I said today was going to be long. I didn't know it was going to be this long. I'm actually kind of glad we're doing this live now, because if I was recording this just by myself, it would probably take me 7 or 8 hours. And that's what it took me to do the catharsis episode. I think it was that episode after the Biden debate. Man, it just takes a really long time when it's the clips and you're breaking them down. But I want to hammer this case because it's legit. Here, so let's check this out.
Do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate, because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border, because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The president of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Right. You'll say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue.
So again, Joe Biden waking up at 4. All Kamala has to do is go down there and tell Joe Biden, hey, use that pen and close the border. But he doesn't do it. Everybody is getting immigration information all day long. People think it was somehow embarrassing that, or Kamala owned him or something when Trump brought up the Haitian cat eaters. I don't know if that story is true or not. I think there are a lot of videos of people talking about how it is true. The fact check on that was ridiculous. It was ridiculous, the fact check on that. David Meir just coming up. Some guy in Ohio says that's not true. Okay, well, other people say it is true. Should I just trust your one person over all of this other stuff? Joe Biden wakes up at 4 p.m. They could solve the immigration crisis, but they don't do it. Let me just play the beginning of that clip again. I want to
do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate, because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go.
That part. We're wasting a lot of time because she's so bad. This is so ridiculous. That's Donald Trump telling you that this debate is a charade and Kamala Harris is not even a serious person. And Donald Trump made Kamala Harris not look like a serious person. Kamala Harris is the person who says Donald Trump is not serious. Donald Trump just went in there and made Kamala Harris look unserious. Yes, she looks confident. She didn't cackle. Yes, she rehearsed her script and relayed most of it fairly well. There was nothing other than that. Emoting, talking about her family, talking about how much she cares. These are the things that we have heard from every Democrat ever, forever. Even a lot of uniparty right politicians do this same thing. She talks about wanting to turn the page. She doesn't want the same old playbook. She is, again, the same old playbook. Ridiculous. It is ridiculous. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry I didn't bring this up during the abortion conversation. This is a resource from Axios. This is from June 28th. How late in pregnancy states allow abortions. And you got to love that the dark, usually like the dark color, that's the bad, like in the weather maps and stuff like that. So 6 weeks or earlier, that's the dark red. 12 to 15 weeks is a little lighter. But look at these states. No defined limit. That means there is no limit. 8 states. So what do we have? New Mexico, Colorado, Oregon, Minnesota, Vermont, New Jersey, DC. What else do we have? Alaska. How in the hell does that happen in Alaska? It's odd, isn't it? Must be like there's some sort of Republican machine up there just deciding to go along with whatever. Oh, yeah, there's Lisa Murkowski's Republican machine up there. That sellout rhino who is just a Democrat, just a uniparty right member who needs to face accountability when all this is done. And 24 weeks or later, they've got another 18. So that is more than half of the country. 24 weeks or later. So what is the controversy here? Did Donald Trump lie? Was that some kind of conspiracy theory he was repeating? No. So they did, as they have always done, to add to the television show, they did one of those dials that the people watching the debate, they turn their dial and the dial goes up and the dial goes down based on whether or not they are happy, whether or not their happy emotions are being cued in by what the politician on the stage is saying. And so they did some of this last night, and they did one of them for the abortion segment. And by and large, the people were agreeing strongly with Donald Trump. We are told that abortion is a Democrat issue. In fact, their best issue, their most popular issue. Watch some of this.
On fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer the question? Would you
because
veto?
Under Roe v. Wade,
you
could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th month, and probably after birth.
So that is actually 100% true. Trump was absolutely dead on accurate. And by the way, what's going on with Kamala's mics? I thought the mics were supposed to be off when the other person was speaking. So her mic was on, and she was attempting to refute or shout down Donald Trump while making those claims. But you saw the reaction there. I mean, who knows how realistic that is. But yeah, the idea that abortion is a winning issue for Democrats, no, it's not. Donald Trump presented the fullness of that. Donald Trump is setting the terms over which other people will argue. Every time the communists out there grab one of these clips and say, look how bad Donald Trump is, they actually have to defend that Donald Trump is wrong and Donald Trump isn't wrong. So they're going to go out, and in order to reinforce their point that Donald Trump is the worst person ever, what they are going to do is advertise the things that Donald Trump has said. And then anybody who's like, wait a second, is Donald Trump telling the truth? We'll look those things up and find out that Donald Trump is telling the truth. All of this stuff is a huge net positive for Donald Trump being portrayed by people being influenced by the need to conform to consensus as somehow a failure. It's not a failure, man. It's just not a failure. And somehow we're just all going to have to get through this, aren't we? Donald Trump, a couple of times, I think I have one of them here. Donald Trump actually reversed the thing on her. We saw that viral clip a few weeks ago where Kamala was getting heckled, and then she said, "I'm speaking now." And the hecklers were totally shut down. Look at Kamala handling this crowd. Gosh, Kamala and all her handling. Look at how Kamala handles things. It's very, very impressive. Yes, how Kamala handles things. Let me see if I can share this in here. It might be difficult. I'm not sure if it's properly. Oh, no, we're going to be just fine. Here we are.
Big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out. Wait a minute. I'm talking now. If you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar? She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people.
First of all, he was describing the situation in Minnesota where Kamala went out and posted online the website of it was called like the Minnesota Freedom Fund or something like that, or the Minnesota Defense Fund, whatever it was. Chrissy Teigen was posting about it. That was the thing when they were all doing their BLMs at the beginning of Operation Floyd. That was to raise money to bail out Antifa protesters. Donald Trump calls her out on that. She tries to interject the microphone off this time. She keeps talking. He shuts her down. He says, "Excuse me, I'm talking. Does that sound familiar?" Now, it's not only the viral clip from a few weeks ago. She also did that to Mike Pence in her vice presidential debate with him in 2020. And Donald Trump stated later on that he was actually kind of coming to Mike Pence's defense. He felt he needed to do that there. And so he did it. And he took her thing and reversed it on her. He did that twice because she was barking at him from over there. She was doing that to try to throw him off. Like, they talk about how Donald Trump has all this bad behavior. Again, that's projection. So that anything he does can be skewed that way by the media. The person actually doing it was pretty obviously Kamala Harris. Donald Trump also got to say this to the American public, and it was something that needed to be said in a forum like this to see that he is not backing down in any way at all.
This into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
sarcastically.
That.
You know that. It was said, "Oh, we lost by a whisker." That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls. And we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them
no
Republican.
Judge looked at it.
And said
they
there was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread
standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter, because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you.
Okay. So again, the whole country's back on the same page. They get to listen to Donald Trump, and he tells them that, yes, obviously our elections are stolen. They are very bad. They have more than enough evidence for everything in 2020. And David Muir tries to fact check Donald Trump on whether or not he was joking. Now, the media looks terrible in that case, but the media looking terrible is very good. Like, people wanted Trump to win the debate. What does that even mean? What does it mean? Does it mean that people are convinced to go on to Donald Trump's side? If that's the case, then Donald Trump did win. Okay? Again, this doesn't benefit Kamala Harris. The media says it does. As this cycles through over a couple of days and people have these conversations in real life and they watch these conversations evolve on social media, what the media said after the debate is not going to make one bit of difference. It will become quickly embarrassing to be claiming that Kamala Harris did well or that Kamala Harris should be voted for. And that is how it should feel for these people. Okay? And you don't need to say anything out of bounds in any way to make this point. It is self-evident from watching and simple discussion. Donald Trump just presented again the case that our elections are stolen to a nationwide captive audience. Kamala Harris accomplished nothing last night except making her look minimally competent at presenting herself, which she couldn't, a bar she couldn't reach prior to that. Take a break for a second. Starborn01 in the chat earlier, a Rumble rant, $5. Also was so weird that Trump team invited like all the famous Con Inc. ex-influencers, at least 20 of them, to PA and sit in the media room and tweet. I don't know why he did that, but there are reasons for sure. Well, that's part of a social media operation. I'm sure that was at least somewhat effective. If he wants to communicate to that mainstream audience through people like Chaya Raichik, who is Libs of TikTok, and Jack Posobiec and some of those others, great. They have big platforms. If they are there invited by Trump, they sure better say nice things about Trump. So, I mean, savvy social media move. I don't love it personally with my own feelings, but it's a savvy social media move, and I can totally understand why he made it. I hope it was effective. It probably helped shut down some of the other Con Inc. op coming from a lot of the DeSantis simps and people who just want to say that Trump took the bait or Trump didn't answer this the way he could have or should have answered it. You know, so it knocks down some of that stuff, and it allows that battle to happen between those sides of Con Inc., and that's all good. I mean, I would love everything to be a perfect world, but I know that world doesn't exist. So, hey, man, these are the cards that get laid on the table. It's a fine set of cards. We're doing just fine. All right, back to debate clips.
I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch?
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you.
So Vladimir Putin is going to eat Donald Trump for lunch. That is how powerful Vladimir Putin is. He has tricked Donald Trump. Donald Trump is just his bitch, and he's going to eat him for lunch. That is what we are supposed to believe. Kamala Harris said that Donald Trump would give up on Ukraine, and that's not who we are as Americans. As Americans, we are tasked with the mission of always supporting Ukraine, no matter what those Nazis are doing. The moderator kept attempting to make Donald Trump say whether or not he wanted Ukraine to win. Okay? A ridiculous, childish framing of this question from the most serious people on earth, obviously, our mainstream. And I said last night immediately, well, that's going to be a headline. They are going to reframe this and say, Donald Trump refuses to say he wants Ukraine to win. And so I just did this search. Let's see what this MSN article is from, because they reprint stuff. So I don't want to double hit. So that's NBC News. Trump won't say if he wants Ukraine to win. AP. Trump insists Russia's war should end, but he won't say if he wants Ukraine to win. Trump, ABC News. Trump insists Russia's war. So that's a reprint of the AP. HuffPost. Donald Trump won't say he wants Ukraine to win war with Russia. The New York Times asked if he wants Ukraine to defeat Russia. Trump doesn't say yes. Orlando Sentinel. That's just USA Today. Trump insists Russia's war should end, but he won't say if he wants Ukraine to win. Trump won't say if he wants Ukraine to win war with Russia. That's the Wall Street Journal. Bloomberg, same thing. CBS, same thing. CNN, same thing. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different mainstream media outlets on the first page of search results doing exactly what I said they were going to do. And that's why the question was written that way, so that they could publish that headline. Again, the info op creates the reality. What they want to use as the info op, they need that to happen in reality, so they create that happening. It was the same situation with Proud Boys. Stand back and stand by. And of course, Kamala Harris brought up that moment last night. Same thing. They're trying to make Trump say or not say something particular that they can then use to spin off headlines. Yeah, let's go. By the way, Ukraine as a war is not even popular in America anymore. So Donald Trump not saying that he wants them to win, that's good to most Americans. And he made it clear that he wants the dying to stop. Let's go back to this.
On Ukraine tonight, Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow much happier than he is right now. But eventually, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening, but he does have that. Something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy.
All right. So Kamala advocates for the one world, liberal, international, rules-based order. That is what she just did right there explicitly. Okay? She wants to prioritize the international order. And that is how you, I guess, stand up to your enemies. David Muir, again, tried to save her. He reframed what Trump said. He said she went over to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin. He never said that they were there in person or that she met Putin. She was over there to represent the United States in the negotiation, a much higher level negotiation. It's not a matter of pretending that Kamala Harris is actually going to sit down with Vladimir Putin and try to negotiate peace on behalf of the United States. That would never happen. Vladimir Putin he knows that Kamala Harris is not a real vice president, doesn't get his information from CNN, doesn't believe that Joe Biden received 81 million real lawful American votes. Imagine taking these people seriously. It's incredible that they just tried to, that the moderators just tried to defend her on all of this stuff. We're basically through what I wanted to talk about from inside the debate. We're doing great, guys. I can't believe how long this is going. And if you're really bored, I apologize. If this is going to be a pain to listen to all of it, I apologize for that as well. But hey, I think we're having a good time. Check this out. So this is Trump from the closing.
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that. And within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
So he certainly has that right, naturally. I did find one more clip that I definitely do want to play. But again, very straightforward, very methodical. Did he venture off course a couple times? Yes, fine. But he just pulls in other examples. Now, that's not for everybody. If you want the polished bullet point, A, B, C, D, wrap it all up, summarize, close, that would be a perfect answer in every scenario if he could do that every time. But that's not what he does, okay? And it's not necessary. And a lot of people don't need that. That is just that college year. And other people are like, oh, yeah, that's right, too. And then he comes back and it's fine. I have to play this. I have to play this because this is just one of those other things that this is one of those things that you say in front of the nation. They don't hear it. Normies do not hear this on their televisions being said by someone in a position of such authority. And it does matter when someone finally says it and puts it down on the record because everybody knows it. And it's just a matter of whether or not it will be spoken into existence. Here we go.
Up soldiers. He did it after I left. I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up. Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win?
So he just asked the nation, who's in control right now? Do we even have a president? Does anybody know who's president? And Kamala Harris just pretends to be shocked as if this is something that's totally out of bounds. What is he even saying? Who could ever imagine that we don't have a president right now? Everybody knows that Joe Biden's been hanging out on the beach for 3 weeks. Normies know that stuff, all right? That's the sort of thing that even breaks through the normie layer. Fox News will tell that to their viewers. This is the stuff that connects, man. This is not Donald Trump taking the bait and doing bad things. This is Donald Trump hammering every single issue. He puts it all out on the table and he says, go ahead, contend with this. Now it's a matter of the people to contend with it. Is this stuff going to be thrown in their faces? Is this stuff going to be used to mock and ridicule them? Because that's what is effective in the party of false decorum. Okay? That is the element they understand that people on our side often don't. All right. It's not that like mocking and ridicule is a good way to go about the whole of your life. But if we are talking about evil people who are operating for the sake of their reputation, mocking and ridicule makes it impossible for them to do what they're attempting to do with their reputation. It is immediately it stops that in its tracks, okay? Again, that's why You Sound Vaccinated was so effective, because it said to them, hey, you're trying to be smart right now? Look at this stupid thing you did, and you bragged about it, and it turns out it was really stupid. So do you want to own that you did something dumb and then humble yourself a little bit about the way you're approaching things, or are you just going to keep going like this? Those moments, man, those moments are what make people actually feel it. And when people actually feel it, that is when they may begin to change. Let's go to some of the CNN reaction. I really wanted to find this Jake Tapper clip leading into this segment. Maybe you know what? Hold for processing. Maybe I can scroll quickly to this on our Badlands coverage from last night, because it is really incredible how Jake Tapper just attempts to kind of frame the whole debate as something that it wasn't. And the reactions after the debate, in my view, are as scripted as and rehearsed as, well, maybe not as rehearsed, as set up, I should say, as Kamala Harris's responses in that debate. All right, so here is Jake Tapper. I'm now going to share a stream I was on yesterday, so this is like Inception for my face. Watch Jake Tapper's reactions, though, and obviously if you're listening on audio, I apologize, but know that he is being very actory.
To be pleased with her performance this evening, which was focused on, telling voters that she cares about them and she has a plan for them, and over baiting Donald Trump into talking about crowd sizes and court cases and Nancy Pelosi and Russiagate and grievance. And he took the bait almost every time.
But the moderators were doing that bait
half the time. He cited Fox hosts as fact checkers. He invoked Hungarian strongman Viktor Orban as a character witness. It was like a 4chan post come to life. He really took her bait almost every time. Yeah. If you're a fisherman, as I struggle to be, you would be lucky to have your bait taken so often. Instead of focusing on Trump filling in the blanks for those voters unfamiliar with her, he focused on stuff as if he was the incumbent. I'm not sure Harris necessarily did enough to fill in the blanks that undecided voters might have about specifics about her plans, but there's no question Democrats have to feel good tonight about the
I saw this on Twitter.
All right, so that's a little bit of the flavor from Jake Tapper. Do you think that he came up with that that fishing quip that he made right on the fly, or did he come up with that before? Kamala Harris is a master baiter. That should probably get out there into the ether as well, if we're going to talk about how she baited him so well. I guess you got to give the other side of it, right? Okay, but let's now go to Chris Wallace, because his response was absolutely ridiculous. You'll remember that Chris Wallace was the person who teamed up with Joe Biden to tag team Donald Trump in the debate from 2020. And he was the one who helped Joe Biden. He and Joe Biden cornered Donald Trump into repeating the Proud Boys stand back and stand by nonsense.
Jake, I didn't think I was ever going to witness a debate as devastating as the one that you and Dana moderated back in June, where Joe Biden basically tanked his reelection campaign. I think tonight was just as devastating. I think that Kamala Harris pitched a shutout on almost every subject I can think of. She shut Trump down on abortion. She shut Trump down on January 6th and democracy. She shut him down on national security and turned to the former president and said, the military leaders who served with you think that you're a disgrace. And then, as Dana mentioned, very powerfully at the end, made the point that she is the candidate of change. We need to turn the page from a decade of division and polarization. On substance, I think she pitched a shutout, and I think she did on style as well. I mean, the image of the debate to me is she's there, happy, smiling, expressive, shaking her head, and dismay at things Trump was saying. And Trump looked angry, scowling. She was looking directly at the audience. He was looking at the moderators and arguing with them. And something else. And Donald Trump looked old tonight. Yeah. And you know, somebody said on my show on Saturday, she wins just by showing up. I didn't know that was going to be true. I think it was. Yeah. She was the candidate of change just from the moment the two of them were on the stage.
Everything that she said.
Sorry, hold on 1 second. I thought I wanted to stop the clip there, and then I heard what they were saying on the way out. You got to listen to this. Laura Coates. She is like some sort of legal expert or something.
He said.
Well, what you saw really was
under control.
Vice President Kamala Harris prosecuting this debate with surgical precision. She was aware, as she must have been as a prosecutor, that the second you were inside of a courtroom, The jury is looking at everything you're doing. Muted microphones, doesn't matter. Her nonverbal cues, her body language, her incredulous expressions, at one point putting her hand under her chin to demonstrate that she was completely baffled by his line of defense. Losing a battle of expert witnesses you're talking about national security advisors, talking about Nobel laureates, talking about the whole litany of people who do not buy what he sells.
So, yeah, that's another point that I'm glad that she just brought that up. Kamala Harris bragged about being endorsed by Dick and Liz Cheney, Mitt Romney, and I think she mentioned John McCain or something in relation to Trump. Maybe it was in the healthcare segment. All of that helps Donald Trump. She says 200 Republicans, your former officials, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? Donald Trump made the point. Yeah, I fired those people. They don't like me. People take that as a Kamala win because the normies out there are hearing that all these people, they don't like Donald Trump, and we're supposed to believe that that has some major effect on them. They've been told that for 9 years, and all of those officials end up looking bad eventually, unless you're Trump deranged. And the Trump deranged people are not going to be reached, okay? They're going to disseminate these messages because they think that that's how to win. And truthfully, that would be how to win. They can't do it effectively, so they're not going to win. It doesn't matter. So that reaction already by CNN, they are desperate. That's desperation on their part. Donald Trump was not devastated. That was not the most devastating debate anyone's ever seen. And the people who were viewing the debate, all of the focus groups, all of the snap polls after the fact, and I think we'll see it reflected in the polling over the course of the next few days, over the weekend. We'll probably begin talking about it early next week. The polling is going to reflect that Kamala Harris was not helped by this performance. In fact, Donald Trump was. They were posting polls that Trump won. ABC News, the people who broadcast and ran the debate, posted a poll last night. Who won the debate? Donald Trump, 92%. Kamala Harris, 4%. Undecided 4%. It really was not. It was not close. Kamala Harris defied expectations and what people know her to be. And so that, I guess, caused cognitive dissonance. People worried about the cognitive dissonance of others. They had been making the case that Kamala was totally unfit. She was a cackling idiot. And it made them look wrong about those things. And I guess maybe that's what they're concerned about. But they're not wrong about those things. Kamala Harris is a cackling idiot. It doesn't matter that she memorized these lines for this debate. All of the proof of the other thing is still out there. It can't just disappear. Everything's going to be fine. Donald Trump did fine. Could it have been better? Sure. Everything can always be better. But it was good. It was fine. Taylor Swift. So Kamala Harris went off after the debate to an after party. They now show their candidates going to after parties where they have supporters set up who are all prepared to cheer for the famous person in the room, the famous, powerful person. Oh, I'm so lucky to be here. People are going to see me cheering and know that I should be seen as an important and serious individual here at this fake presidential debate after party. And so that is what we are forced to witness. Even Fox News broadcast that. And then shortly after that, as part of the ongoing PR campaign to make Kamala Harris look important, to make it seem as though she did an excellent job in the debate, we get this, the endorsement of Taylor Swift, who at the bottom of her post refers to herself as a childless cat lady. She is hugging her cat in the picture. And it's funny because Donald Trump just talked about the Haitian cat eaters. So good or bad on this same op, who knows? I will be casting my vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in the 2024 presidential election. I'm voting for Kamala Harris because she fights for the rights and causes I believe need a warrior to champion them. I think she is steady-handed, gifted leader, and I believe we can accomplish so much more in this country if we are led by calm and not chaos. I was so heartened and impressed by her selection of running mate Tim Walz, who has been standing up for LGBTQ plus rights, IVF, and a woman's right to her own body for decades. I've done my research and I've made my choice. Your research is all yours to do, and the choice is yours to make. I also want to say, especially to first-time voters, remember that in order to vote, you have to be registered. I also find it's much easier to vote early. I'll link where to register and find early voting dates and info in my story with Love and Hope, Taylor Swift, Childless Cat Lady. So, are all the Swifties going to be on board now? Maybe, maybe not. Who gives a shit? Okay? Doesn't matter. That is a different kind of derangement. You can be Trump deranged. You can be Taylor Swift deranged. It doesn't matter. If you are deranged, if you are an idolater, if you choose earthly god kings to follow for their political and moral stances, you are not awake and you're not going to get on board at all. So who cares what Taylor Swift says? Now, from a PR perspective, they had this all set up. It has been waiting for who knows how long. They chose the perfect time. This is meant to make it look like people who were formerly undecided have now chosen this moment to come out in favor of Kamala Harris. She's bringing out the big guns. The cavalry is coming. That's what this is supposed to be. Does it matter? Let's see what Trump thinks.
Kamala Harris, what do you think?
Well, I actually like Mrs. I actually like Mrs. Mahomes much better, if you want to know the truth. She's a big Trump fan. I was not a Taylor Swift fan. It was just a question of time. You couldn't possibly endorse Biden. You look at Biden, you couldn't possibly endorse him. But she's a very liberal person. She seems to always endorse a Democrat, and she'll probably pay a price for it in the marketplace. But no, I like Brittany. I think Brittany's great. Brittany got a lot of news last week. She's a big MAGA fan. That's the one I like much better than Taylor Swift.
Right. Brittany is Mahomes. Yeah, they're Mahomes. They're a great friend.
Trump says he doesn't care about the Taylor Swift endorsement. He would rather have the endorsement of Brittany Mahomes, who is the wife of Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs. He is the guy who throws the ball to Travis Kelce, the fake boyfriend of Taylor Swift. Their contract is a few weeks away from expiring. We'll see if they re-up for another contract. That's who Taylor Swift is. The most interesting and important thing he said there is he thinks that she'll probably see a reaction in the marketplace. And again, as I was saying before about the Hollywood stuff, that's exactly what should happen. And they will see that reaction. I have been telling my the people who I'm still friends with who are famous, that they need to get out there ahead of this stuff at some point. Otherwise, they're just going to be seen as having gone along with it. And they will be seen that way. Man, it makes me sad, right? Like, you can't tell somebody to take a risk, especially when they don't have faith that the outcome will be a good one. You know, I don't know what to say about that, man. If nobody speaks up, then no one else knows that other people agree with them. Okay? And that is one of the biggest problems we have. It really, really is. Everybody just thinks that they are in a minority. They are cowed. They're afraid to stand up and speak up for themselves, worried about the backlash they will receive from liberals and what influence those liberals, what impact they will try to make, negative impact on their lives. And I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm saying that even though it can happen, you still have to speak up anyway. Or else, what is the role, right? What is it that you're doing? You're going to ballot harvest. Yep. Okay. So Hannity twice does this. And Hannity's the dude that wears like the CIA lapel pin. So who knows what Hannity is ever doing or whose side he's on. Donald Trump keeps going on a show. He keeps saying nice things about him. He said that Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham fact-checked something during the debate that was seen as out of touch by people. Except if Trump knows something that we don't know. Because what I'm about to show you is Donald Trump being live in mid-negotiation. Sean Hannity, he is the arbitrator in this negotiation that we're about to see live. Okay. The debate ended. And then all of a sudden we hear that Kamala Harris wants to do a second debate. Why in the world would Kamala Harris want to do a second debate? And Donald Trump says that that's because she lost. But if we are looking at the big picture perspective on this, what we have is the global regime trying to gain leverage in this negotiation, trying to influence public perception. They didn't get the job done last night. And so they want another bite at the apple. It's not even just that Kamala Harris lost in the debate, which people can, decide on their own terms. Losing a debate, what does that even mean? Kamala Harris did not get the job done for the regime, so now they need something more. And Trump's saying, why would I negotiate with you? Here we go. And watch Trump's eyes when he looks at the camera, too. He's not talking to just Sean Hannity. He's looking up at the camera. Keep an eye on him looking straight forward and on the language here. This is Donald Trump mid-negotiation.
Well, I don't know. I have to think about it. But if you won the debate, I sort of think maybe I shouldn't do it. Why should I do another debate? She immediately said, we want another debate. That's, what happens when you're a prize fighter and you lose? You immediately want a new fight.
You want a rematch.
You want a rematch. The guy that won is sort of happy and thinking about it.
Would you be inclined to say yes, or you
maybe
don't know?
If it was on a fair network, I would do that. But
I think let Hannity moderate it.
Yeah, no, I think
like I did Newsom and Ron DeSantis.
I think it would be fair. You would be fair, actually.
I would be
you
fair.
Want to know the truth.
I'd let you both talk. I'd let you go at each other.
I thought they would be fair. They weren't, but I felt very comfortable.
Yeah.
We have the best policy. She has no policy.
So that's the first mention, and I want to find another in here because the second one is even more, even a better illustration of what I was referring to just a moment ago, and I think I have found it. He will look right in the camera and say, why would I keep negotiating this? Let's try this one as well. I'm not exactly sure that this will work, but I think it'll continue illustrating my point.
Wanted to. I was very happy with the result. It's a very unfair situation. They've weaponized our government politically, so, that's unfair. And I just felt we had a great night. And I'd come over here. I actually gave a little bit of a news conference. We were swarmed.
Oh, by the way, I could hear it. You were interrupting my show, by the way, just for the record.
I had to come over and do yours. I would hate like heck to leave here, and I didn't do
No, I would be mad. I would take that as a personal offense.
I would have been in big trouble.
All right, so no answer on their offer for a second debate.
Again, the reason you do a second debate is if you lose, and they lost. And we looked at one poll. It was 90.
Donald Trump made the decision to come over to the spin room. They made a big deal about that. Is Donald Trump coming over to the spin room because he lost? No, Donald Trump's going over to the spin room so that he can host a direct public negotiation with people who actually make decisions about this stuff, with Sean Hannity as the intermediary. And that is what Sean Hannity was doing. That is what he was there to do. That's why he repeated these questions over and over again. Here is what Donald Trump said today about the rematch on Truth Social. He said, in the world of boxing or UFC, when a fighter gets beaten or knocked out, they get up and scream, I demand a rematch. I demand a rematch. Well, it's no different with a debate. She was beaten badly last night. Every poll has us winning. In one case, 92-8. So why would I do a rematch? And he's exactly right. Why would he do it? He can do it. They will say that he's scared of a rematch if he doesn't do it. But none of that matters. It doesn't matter at all. The master baiter is now trying to bait Trump into another debate. And the regime wants that. And maybe we'll get one and maybe we won't. If he has one or if he doesn't have one, it's of no consequence to me. And it's of no consequence to the larger project. It'll either speed it up slightly or slow it down slightly. But these are not the critical moments. A revelation of election fraud in 2020 that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are not legitimate. That's a moment. Kamala Harris being kicked out again. That's a moment. And they came out to her defense last night. So I would agree with my friends who believe that makes it less likely that they would still now replace her. But it doesn't go down to zero. Hillary Clinton is still a person. Big Mike is still a person. Maybe they think they're going to be able to ride Trump out for 4 years and wait for another real election. fake election, all that matters is whether or not we have legitimate elections. All the political concerns are underneath that. Every one of those processes is subservient to that main process, whether or not we have real elections. That depends on who controls the military, who controls the communications, who controls the money. All of that is slipping away from them. Okay. So I don't see a case where they are looking out to the future and trying to groom these people for their future in politics. Most of their brands have already been tarnished beyond repair. They can say that Kamala Harris did great. Kamala Harris did not do great. Kamala Harris made it over very certain, very low bars. And that's it. There was nothing beyond that. And it's to the point where I really think it's crazy to be worried about it. Gosh, man, of all days, there's so many comments. Oh, most people were telling me I was muted. I've got to wrap this up soon, man. It's been 3 hours. This is insane. Let me just try to get through these really quickly just so that I don't totally ignore you guys. Why do CanCon and G-Money actually believe that whoever wins a TV debate will make a difference in a fake election? Were there so many undecided voters, in quotes, actually on the line, that the cabal would decide their November 5th strategy based on the TV polls of who, quote unquote, won the debate? Help me understand why some Anons would think this. I think that you're exactly right. I think that occasionally even people who are great at this stuff and have lots of interesting ideas and are very smart and very knowledgeable still forget to take certain factors into play and how those factors affect other things. And it is a matter, people might get sick of me saying these phrases over and over again, but it is a matter of adhering to these principles each and every time you discuss them, and repeating them not only frames them for me, but it frames them for the audience. And it's necessary to understand that the logic behind these things really is contingent on these fundamental truths that we cannot ignore. Lynn asks about a friend of hers that believes Trump is racist because of the Central Park 5 stuff. She goes through and explains a little bit. I added a link to Central Park 5 joggerattackers.com. Numeral 5, Central Park 5 joggerattackers.com. You will find everything you need to know in there about the Central Park 5. If you go thoroughly through that website and still believe that the Central Park 5 people that the Democrats hold up, that Al Sharpton handles, we're telling the truth and we're innocent, you are insane. They are not innocent. They admitted to the crimes. That was it. Then they presented, quote unquote, DNA evidence and got them off. DNA evidence. If it is evidence at all, it is evidence that is extremely, extremely easy to manipulate. I mean, the idea that getting someone off with DNA evidence means that they did not do the thing they confessed to doing is nuts. Paul says, which amendment has done more to destroy America, the 13th or 19th? It's like the dude's trying to get me banned off every platform. So that's the one that 13th is the one that abolished slavery. The 19th is the one, if I'm not mistaken, that is the women's suffrage amendment. More to destroy the country. Well, to the extent that the 13th Amendment actually abolished slavery, then that wouldn't actually destroy the country. We shouldn't have slavery, but we still have slavery right now. So what they did was something entirely different than abolish slavery. They also essentially conscripted the southern states into ratifying that amendment when they weren't even recognized as states of the Union. And that's true for the Reconstruction Amendments broadly. That period was the purpose of the Civil War was to overthrow the Constitution, and they were successful through the Reconstruction Amendments in doing that. The 19th Amendment, listen, man, I think that all of this system in terms of voting and elections and all that is going to change. I think that there will be something better. I think there might be some sort of relative stake scale. I don't know what that's going to look like in the future. We could be voting on just everything all the time. I don't know. Okay. To say that it's destructive of the country, I guess, is a hard claim to make, unless you want to make the ancillary argument that all of this came as a product of the feminist movement, which is inherently Marxist and pushed women into the workplace to destroy, not totally destroy, obviously. I know that there are working women out there who competently raise families. This is not meant in any way to slight you. I'm talking about what this looks like from the top down and why they do these things. They want to, over time, destroy the nuclear family, pushing women into the workforce, making them pay taxes into the system, and then exhausting them through work so that they have babies later or not at all. All of this is destructive of the United States of America. So we can take it away from the part about women voting. That itself is not as much of a problem, but the other cultural consequences certainly are. I have joked before, and hey, man, there is this world somewhere that women might vote the end to women's suffrage. And hey, man, maybe that's a good move. The reason women didn't have the right to vote back then was because women, by and large, were not engaged in public affairs and didn't know anything about public affairs. And to not know anything about public affairs and then go vote was seen as irresponsible. It would be good to see that as irresponsible in these times as well, but we're not allowed to do that because getting the most possible votes, the highest possible turnout, is now the point of elections for whatever reason. And so that wraps up the very minimal Substack questions. And with that, I am going to get out of here. I apologize for having the mute on for far too long. Bay Theater Dave says the Constitution may need a redo. 100%. It obviously does. I said it, Gart. At some point, I'll go ahead and clip that. But I said that we need to start with going all the way back to the original Constitution and may need to go further. If all those amendments were taken down, they could be put right back. If we had legitimate elections, we would have overwhelming supermajorities on virtually all the important issues. And if something needed to be done with a constitutional amendment, it would be no problem to accomplish that. Also, we have slaves right now. And so the idea that we would be losing something that we would never get back or that would usher in an era of racism, all of that is utterly retarded. Okay. And with that, I will be back tomorrow at the same reasonable time on the same reasonable podcast network. I don't have a network. Masks and lockdowns don't work. They lied to you about a pandemic, and Joe Biden will never be president.
Well, what?
You know who I am, don't you?
Well, you ain't Fiona Apple, and if you ain't Fiona Apple, I don't give a rat's ass.
Ah!
Can we stop this cruel game and allow the boy to keep one shred of dignity? For God's sakes, I can't stand to see him in all this pain. You vicious bastards! Let him move in with you. Is it so bad to see somebody happy? So just let him move in. For the love of God, let the boy move in with you. Good Lord.
And I will not let you down.
We do a little trolling. It's called We Do a Little Trolling.
What?
In my mind, that's the end game.
If you're listening for free and would like to support the show, the best way to do that is by signing up for a paid subscription at imyourmoderator.substack.com. You can find the info stream over on Telegram at t.me/veryreasonable. The merch site is cancelcouture.com. And for all my other links, you can visit linktree.com/imyourmoderator. And I'll see you soon. Down on the range.